everybody.
Way down here, though.
Thanks a lot for being here. Want to get right to our presentation this afternoon, and delighted to have Dee Newkirch, who is our district ELL coordinator, as well as an ELL teacher in our district. She teaches at the elementary level, but oversees the entire ELL program district-wide. And we really think this is a very important topic to share with you, because as she and I talked earlier this semester, and then as she shared information with a number of our student services folks a few weeks ago, we realized that this population is growing, and I don't want to take any of her information away, but this population is growing, and that means that we have more and more teachers who are working with these students. So we really think we need to get all of you more equipped to understand what our program looks like, how it works, who these students are, and what they need. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dee Newkirch.
All right. Thanks for having me today. It's nice to see some familiar faces. I've been in the district for 9 years in this role, and in this role, I oversee programming. I do teach a little bit here and there. I've taught at the middle school, at the elementary school. I'm a familiar face around here. I'm the JV girls tennis coach with Zach Evans, and I just recently was the head badminton coach for a little while there. So I always love coming over here. I have also, I taught in Elmhurst for 9 years prior to this at the middle school level, but I really do enjoy the older students. I also teach a class over at AU, the Intro to ELL and Bilingual course for some of those pre-service teachers. And so I'm really passionate about diverse students and what that looks like in our classrooms. They bring a lot to our classrooms, they bring a lot to our district. And I'm gonna get through as much as I can in 15 to 20 minutes. When Susan Schrader had me in with counseling and advising, we went like an hour and 15. So I won't do that, obviously, today, but I'll try to get through as much as I can that is as beneficial for you to know. And hopefully, I can't sit here today in 15 to 20 minutes and tell you that these 3 exact teaching strategies in all of your classrooms are going to solve all of your problems for our diverse learners. But what I can tell you, and I hope that this is an invitation, an open door invitation to collaborate with me, continue to collaborate with Stephanie and Beth as well. And so before I get started, where's Stephanie? Stephanie Fregley, ELL teacher, and where's Beth Morrison? Right here. She's hiding way up there, right? And we have Beth, right? These ladies are doing an excellent job with our growing population of students, and I'm just really, really proud to be their colleague as well. So today's goals, obviously, I've been introduced. I worked a lot with Shawnette. Wade, she's over there in the front, a good student, right? I partner a lot with Shauna and Andy and a lot of other administrators throughout the district, especially when it comes to our newer students, our newer pockets of newcomer populations spread out throughout the district. There are a total of 11 of us across the district, ELL teachers. We have different programming throughout, but we've got the elementary schools covered. We have early learning over at Fabian covered. We have a full-time staff member at the Geneva Middle School North. We have a staff member over at Geneva Middle School South, and obviously we've increased our staff a little bit over here as well. So those are just some general program details. I'm going to go through general program processes with you, talk a little bit about why our student population is growing as quickly as it is, talk a little bit about staffing information, program models, and then again, hopefully this opens a door to just more collaborative conversations, because the more we can collaborate, the more we can talk about it, the better we can be for our students. So I am going to address the student population. In my 9 years here, we've gone from 7 staff to 11, with adding some instructional assistants throughout our programs. Our bilingual program at Harrison Street Elementary School has doubled, if not tripled in size. When I first started, Stephanie Fregley was split between here and Geneva Middle School North. There are about 3 to 5 ELL kids here at the high school and about 3 to 5 at Geneva Middle School North that she would, go back and forth between. We have since, this was my silly question for Pat Fisher, when you multiply something by 5, what is that called, right? We've grown exponentially just in a very, very short period of time, right? We're now at 23 students over here and about 20 over at Geneva Middle School North, with more coming. And so there's a couple of reasons why, from my point of view, why this population is growing as quickly as it has. First off is the testing requirements that are put on our students. The standards of which they are graded has increased significantly. So 10 years ago, where a student may have exited from services, maybe in 4th grade, the standard of which they're being assessed at has risen, right? And so our students are not exiting as early as they did in the past. So that's one. I would say about 3 or 4 years ago, right before the pandemic, we had a big population surge, especially at that middle school level, and that group of students are now sophomores here, right? And so for whatever reason, whether it was familial, whether it was just an improved living condition, we have a good number of students in that little cohort group that are from West Chicago. That doesn't necessarily, I don't think it's indicative of anything in particular, it's just coincidental at that time. Some other reasons for our population growth is, a community like Geneva is the American dream, right? Like, our families are coming here because they want those beautiful facilities, they want those excellent teachers, they want that, right? And Geneva is a great place to be. Shauna, would you add anything to that population growth?
I think just this year that we are now receiving, we have a handful that are qualifying under the immigrant status because of things going on around the world.
Yeah, and that's, a good point as well, is that we're seeing students and families coming from countries of political unrest, right? And so they're coming to places where they either have family or it's close to their work. There's a lot of nearby employment opportunities for some of our families, either through some of the industries in Aurora. We think about some of the families that are here because they're working at Fermilab. And so there's just a number of reasons, but I would say the biggest one is that we're getting more students. We're hanging on to those students a little bit longer for with testing, testing protocols kind of changing. And so what's exciting is that I think when we have more students, there's more opportunity to learn from them, right? And so I definitely want to highlight that these students bring a lot of really unique experiences and things to our classrooms. If you want to email me, I am down here, right? Deanna. My grandma calls me Deanna. She's about the only one that does. But just take me in, and I am always going to email you back, right, Pat?
Don't set me up.
Don't set them up. I'm sure a lot of us have seen this particular visual, and we've probably experienced something like this on our own, right? Or maybe you got something, the same exact thing that someone else got, and it did wonders for that person, but it did nothing for you, right? I think we can also probably experience or remember a time where we had an experience to the right, where we got something a little bit different because that's what we needed. And so something I would challenge everyone here to think about is, what are we doing for our students that's more to the equity side of things? What are we doing for them socially, emotionally? What are we doing for them academically? What are we doing for them that is what they need? Not just what works for us within our classrooms, right? And this can be where some of those tricky conversations take place. Not every student needs the same thing, right? This is always the biggest question. What is it? ELL, ESL, EL. They're all essentially synonymous with the same idea. These are students who are simultaneously learning multiple languages at the same time. And so the state has called them multilingual learners as of recent. And the state, along with our consortium called WIDA, who's really the spearheads in educational theory and research about our multilingual students, is that we really want to focus on an additive approach, an asset approach, not that learning an additional language is a deficit, right? And so we really try to wrap our heads around that multilingual learner concept. So the first thing in the step of processes that I want to share with you is just simply how do we identify students. Every single solitary student that is registered in a public school in the state of Illinois has to answer these two questions. It doesn't matter if your last name is Smith, it doesn't matter if your last name is Johnson, it doesn't matter if your last name is Rogers, it doesn't matter. All of you as parents have answered these two questions if you've enrolled your students in a public school. The two questions are, what is the language of your home, and what is the language of your student? If at any point in time that language is indicated as something other than English, we then screen them with the state-mandated WIDA online screener tool. With that tool, students are assessed in their academic English language, not their social language, but their academic English language in listening, speaking, reading, and writing. It is a purposefully rigorous test so that students are not falling through the cracks, right? And so we have 30 days upon a student coming to Geneva to get that screener done. We know that in 30 days a lot can happen, so our staff work pretty tirelessly to get that done within a week. And especially here at the high school, we get that screening done before they even start, so that I can work with counseling and advising, and Beth and Stephanie can work with counseling and advising to make sure that we're setting up an appropriate schedule for them, right? At the elementary school, it is a little bit different. A kid can just start in kindergarten, and we'll get their services up and running as we need to, right? So that is the primary purpose of this home language survey. In 304, we have 426 speakers of a language other than English, and of those 426, 157 of them receive services, or are eligible for services. So what happens is they take that assessment, they take that screener tool, and depending on the score that they get, they either qualify for services or they don't. There's a number of students who have taken the screener who are multilingual learners or multilingual students that don't qualify for services. You probably have a number of them in your class who are multilingual students, right? I can think of girls on my badminton and tennis team that speak another language at home but aren't receiving ELL services, right? And so of those 157, over to the right where it says grade distribution, you'll see the numbers, the larger number is those with another language indicated other than English. Then to the right, it's those who are eligible for services. So at the elementary level, we've got 84. At the middle school level, we have 28. And then 9 through 12 is 23, right? That's much different than 2014's 3 or 5 ELL students, right? And so just some things to highlight is that our languages, our top 10 languages are over to the left. Obviously, we do have a large population of Spanish speakers, but we also are getting a lot of different, lower incident languages. We just got a family from Ukraine, just got family from Turkey, just got family from Singapore, and so our populations are diverse. To the right, you'll see where our largest numbers are, right? Early learning has 14, that's a lot, right? And once they've been identified, they're identified and they go through our program. Harrison Street is significantly higher because they are our bilingual home. If they receive a certain score on their screener and their first language is Spanish, we have a bilingual program at Harrison that those students can attend. If their home school is Western Avenue, we would bus them to Harrison Street so they're accessing that. There's no other school that's deemed a bilingual school, just as an FYI. You need to have 20 or more of one language for it to be determined a bilingual school, or having qualified for a bilingual program. We are not there yet here at Geneva High School. That doesn't mean maybe we won't be, and if we then do open up a bilingual program here, obviously things would look a little bit different, but that's a conversation for the future. Another highly populated building is Geneva Middle School North with 17, and then here obviously with 23. What gets tricky about the middle school and the high school is that they're going to different grade levels, they're going to different classes, they have a different academic path. They're not just in second grade, they're not just in fourth grade, right? They're in social studies and they're in Project Lead the Way, and they're taking quiet, right? And so that's what gets a little bit trickier at the upper grades. A really important thing to note is the time allotment that we are required to work with students. It is not the same as special ed. We're not tied to the minutes. We're not required to document the exact times in which we work with students. This looks a little bit different than our special ed counterparts lot of different ways, some similarities, but the state really looks at a low level, a moderate level, or a high level of support. I know there's a lot of print here on this slide, but if you look at the bullet points, a high level of support is 5 sessions within a week. I would say all of our ELL students here at the high school receive a high level of support, except for maybe 1 or 2 here or there that are only in a study hall. But even then, that's happening every day, right? And then we have a moderate level of support and a low level of support. When we look at English language learners, we look at them on a continuum using a scale 1 through 6. 1 being for newcomers, 6 being for those who are highly proficient with their academic English language. And so typically a higher level of support, we're gonna have those newcomers, we're gonna have students who are truly still acquiring that academic language to be successful in their academic classes. And so then we continue to just look at that continuum of where they're at and what they need, what can they access on their own, and what do they need support with. This is documented in eSchool. It's not important to know how to find that right this second, but if you want to know, any one of us could help you with that. Susan, me, Doug, Scott, they know where those types of things are, but because of the structure of the school day here at Geneva High School, all of our students are receiving that high level of support. At the high school, programming is split up into kind of 3 paths. The first one being, and I should start with the middle one, the EL supported study hall. EL teachers support students in a smaller study hall working on coursework from their classes. This is what we call a sheltered environment where students that are similar to one another are in that smaller setting. They're getting more specific support in what it is that they need. The focus is to support students in English language development. Stephanie and Beth are not sitting there just translating all of your work for them, right? They're making that content more accessible for them. They're maybe rephrasing something. Perhaps they're finding an additional resource that might help them better understand your content. And the ELL teacher focuses on supporting students with all of their coursework as needed. There's been a lot of conversation of how is this different than a supported study hall, and I think a lot of that just comes from more, more conversation about individual students overall. Beth and Stephanie, when I talk to them, they're not the keepers of the homework completion. They're making sure that content is understandable so that they can complete the work from your class, which I think is important to note. To the right, you'll see EL teachers support in academic classes. Both Beth and Stephanie are pushing into those core academic science, math class, perhaps social studies. However, it works into their schedule between the 4 grade levels, right? They are working and partnering with teachers in that way. And then to the left, you'll see the ELL English class, which is an English credit. That's a more sheltered environment also where students are receiving that standardized English instruction. Spanish support is available when needed, right? If needed, the focus is to deliver content in English because again, we don't have a bilingual program, right? So the expectation to translate everything is not there. And then what do we do about our students who just came from Singapore? I don't speak Burmese, but I can sit and translate all day for, Jose, and right? And so we have to be careful that what we're doing in our classrooms are strategies versus just giving them content in that first language. Again, that's the biggest difference between our ELL program and a bilingual program. And so students can get a variety, kind of a combination of these. There are some students who have all 3 levels of support within their day. There's some students that only have the supported study hall. There's some students that only have the teacher support in their class because perhaps their study hall is tied to their IEP minutes, right? Counseling and advising, along with Susan and Sherry, we're working really closely together this year to make a little bit more sense of all of it and make sure that what we're doing for students is what's best for them. So those are our program models here. They're very similar at the middle school as well, so that students are getting used to that concept of being independent in their classes, and then using the resources that they have language-wise during that study hall or during that push-in time. I don't want to go, I think I have 3 minutes, and I will, Tom has this PowerPoint as well as Susan, and it's not a secret, right? So you're welcome to have it. We'll send it out after this. But you'll notice that in looking at the roles and responsibilities of the classroom teacher and the ELL teacher, and then the shared responsibilities, they're quite equal, right? And I think the biggest, takeaway today would be that it's a collaborative effort. It's not always easy, right? Because I can't give you those 3 strategies that will work for you in all of your classrooms for every student, right? Because all of our students are different. And so what I would encourage you to do, especially if you are a faculty member that has a number of these students in your class or some of these students in your class, is to think about what practices are you putting into place, what kind of collaborative practices are put into place. And if there are things that aren't happening, that could be happening, what can we do to make it better? I know that Susan and I have talked a little bit about me coming over here maybe a day or 2 a week and being available in the Commons to have some conversation about your lesson plans. And having, me just sharing some suggestions. I'm not the content expert, you are, right? But how can I help you make some of this learning for our students more accessible? Beth and Stephanie, I think they would love to have all this time in the world to share with you all these wonderful strategies as well, but they're busy teaching. And so I would just really invite you to connect with us. Department chairs, can I come to a department meeting? Can we have a chat? Can I come to your PLCs? How can we make all of this work for you within your classrooms and work well for our students as well? And I think that's really the biggest goal here today, is that you see me as someone to turn to in addition to your administrators that are already here, in addition to Beth and Stephanie as well. Although 25 students is still a small percentage of your overall population, they're important. Those students are they're growing so much. They might not always love coming to school, right? But they're a really valuable part of our classrooms, a part of our community, and I just want to make sure that we all feel good about what we're doing for them. I know that Beth and Stephanie are doing an amazing job of supporting students, supporting staff. If we could add 5 more days or 5 more hours to the day, right? There's never enough time. But what can we do to help support some of this, the growth that needs to happen, within us feeling confident and comfortable in reaching these students. And then I'll close, right? This can't happen without us collaborating with one another, right? We can't work in isolation. We're not an island, right? You are the content expert. We are the experts of making content accessible. How can we collaborate? It might take some extra time, but I will say this, once you get 2, 3 solid good strategies under your belt that maybe you weren't doing before, it's not just going to help your diverse ELL learners, but it will help some of your other struggling learners, which I think is also really important as well. And so being collaborative, right, and being proactively collaborative is always far more beneficial and productive, right? Don't wait for that kid to fail the test after 8 weeks of a unit, right? What can we do to make it more real in that moment, right? And throughout that entire lesson. There are a number of different translation services and supports that are available. You'll have this slide. I do want to share that in PowerPoint already embedded, especially if you use PowerPoint in your class lectures, you can automatically get things translated in the slides with a really easy button. Microsoft 365 has a lot of really great improved translation tools. We have some additional tools, as sharing with Susan. We have a mic that gets connected here, that gets connected to your computer, and if the students are given an iPad, it's translating your lesson for them in real time, right? If that's something you're interested in, let me know, right? We need to buy some more, let's do it, right? Just be thinking about some of the things that maybe you want to learn from me or learn from Beth, better learn from Stephanie, and we'll make it happen as best as we can. Okay? I'm trying to think, anything else? There's a lot of different places to go if you're in a grad school program. I think it's almost required now to take some sort of diverse student class. But if you're looking for some additional information, there's lots out there. Some a little bit more, research, theory type stuff, but there's a lot of really great resources out there that don't include all that really heavy reading. Some of my favorite sites are, the WIDA site is super helpful. Anything in that Coleraine, Colorado is really, really helpful. Nice articles for parents as well. I believe I made 3:23, I'm sorry. I did it. Before 3:30.